So a young lady by the name of Sonya Massey called out the police department to investigate a possible intruder outside of her house. She then ends up losing her life. Let's talk about it.
Oh, it's good. Good and terrible.
I love Brotha T.
How you doing? This is Terry Wilson, aka yo boy Brotha T, here with another one. So I'd like to thank you and welcome to the New Life Tree, where we like to give you little pine cones of wisdom for your motivation and mental health. If you don't know what that is, stick around, stay on the channel, you'll get it. Remember, I don't know everything, but I might know a lot of things.
That was beautiful.
So today we're going to talk about the alleged murder of Sonya Massey by a police officer by the name of Sean Grayson. The other officer was not named. There was two officers that was called to the house. So Sonya Massey called in to report a possible intruder outside of her home. Two officers show up. The two officers do an outside investigation. They take a look at everything. They see there's a car in the driveway or the backyard, something like that, and the car has a smashed driver's side window. So they go up to the door and they report to her that, hey, they really didn't see anything outside. And you see Sonya, she's saying random things. And then the officers, at some point, they try to identify her. Now, this is where the story takes a weird twist, right? Because the officers end up inside the home after that. Remember, they didn't see anything outside. The official or the initial report was a possible intruder. They didn't see signs of any intrusion. So at that point, they end up in the home. Now, I just want to throw out there for people out there, police officers really can't come into your home unless you invite them, with the exception of having a warrant, okay, or probable cause. Like if they're standing on the other side of the door and they see an actual crime take place in your house, they do have probable cause to come in. Otherwise, either that or a warrant, you really don't have to let them in. So at that point, you can see the officers trying to identify her, trying to get her to identify herself, trying to get her ID. So they end up inside the house, both officers, okay? As they're inside of the house, the one officer, he does a little sweep of the area, which makes sense for the officer's safety as well as the person, just in case an intruder did get in or if there's somebody in there attempting to harm the officer. That makes sense. So Officer Grayson is the one questioning her, standing over her while she's looking through her purse for a possible ID or whatever. She, at that point, starts rambling back and forth a little bit. Now, at the time I saw the video, I wasn't aware of certain information, so I really, I didn't know everything. So the reason why she was rambling is because she does have certain mental things going on. That's important to this story, in my opinion, because you can see she was asking over and over again for help. She made a phone call at one point. Help. She had kept asking for help. And that just told me that, something was going on with her outside of the realm of just, of somebody just being scared of a possible intruder. So at that time, Officer Grayson, he keeps asking for her ID. Now, I'm going to take a little break here. I know people watching me, if you are in law enforcement, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But in my dealings with law enforcement, they'll ask for your ID sometimes. If you don't have it, sometimes they'll just take your first and last name for the report. At that point, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's been my experience at times. It seems at that point the officers had all the reason that in the world to kind of just take her name down, leave, take care of whatever kind of report. However, they kept asking for this ID, this ID. At one point, the other officer suggests that she turns off some boiling water on the stove. He notices boiling water, obviously. So she walks over there to tend to that or to cut it off. At that point, you can see Sonya Massey. I assume she noticed him, grabbing his weapon. That's what I assume. Now, after she says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says something about hot scalding water, to which she says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." At that point, he said, "You effing better not. I'll effing shoot you in the face." Something that's close. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty close to what he said. At that point, she says, "I'm sorry," drops the pot, and she also drops to the floor. And then Grayson shoots her in the head. Now, Grayson denied her medical help, or he pretty much told his partner, when his partner mentioned the medical help, he said, "Hey, no need, it's a headshot," right? The partner still gets the medical kit and tries to help Sonya Massey. So, oh my God. So, first of all, I just want to say that this is such a sad event and it shouldn't have happened. There's so many ways for this to have been prevented. The officer messed up in so many areas. The only thing I would say to Sonya's side and say that she could have did something different, it's just not letting them in the house. But hey, if she didn't know that, she didn't know that. So we can go there, because a lot of people do not know that. However, the officer in that situation was supposed to handle that person with care. Now, let's go into the background of Sean Grayson. So, the 4 years prior, for the last 4 years, he's worked for 6 departments. He hadn't had a lot of complaints of this type in that 4 years. I'm sorry. However, if you go further back, his military background, he was discharged for misconduct. And misconduct, usually in the military world, means it's a serious offense. Now, a lot of times they don't tell you exactly what it was, so you have to guess. That could be anything that's serious in the military, including SA, if you know what I mean. Among other things, going AWOL, I think you get a misconduct type of thing going on too. So there's no telling. So he did get that misconduct charge. He had a couple of other things going on, but why would you have her turn the pot off? Because now you're putting her in that room, right? Now she's actually sitting on the couch. You're hovering over her, and you have backup right there to your I'm trying to be police about it, right? To your 3 o'clock, on your 3 o'clock. Why? On your 3 or whatever. I don't know how to say it. But you were actually, there's no threat there. Even when she goes to the kitchen, there's still no threat. He handled this totally wrong. Now, he was arrested and he is charged. He actually is facing 3 charges. According to NBCnews.com, he's pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. My heart goes out to the family. Sorry for your loss. And I know it's hard to look at every single day, especially something that could have been preventable. So when you're dealing with people who have, sometimes they have certain mental issues, you have to handle them with a different level of care than you would somebody not dealing with those issues. I kind of know this from experience. I wasn't an officer, so it wasn't like a dangerous situation every single time. However, I used to be a cable guy, utility worker, so I went in people's houses for a living. At one point, I would go in 6 days a week, right? Between 10 and 20 houses a day, especially when it was at its peak, So every now and then, if you do that, and I did it for 16 years, I can tell you without any hesitation that you're gonna get a couple of people who are they're gonna be erratic sometimes, and you're okay. I'll tell you a story. So there was a few stories of times I've had to deal with people who were dealing with certain issues. You have to talk to them different. But at the same time, you have to be ready for them to do things out of the blue. I'm not saying that Sonya was on that, but I'm just saying you have to be ready for that and you have to handle that a certain way. If you get a situation or if you're put in a situation where you can actually diffuse it, make sure everything's good and get out of there, I suggest doing it right away. And they could have did that. As soon as they saw that signs of no intrusion or nothing that looked dangerous at the time, they should have wrapped it up there. They should have took her name in that little book of theirs, did the report, got on about their business. She still will be alive today. I went in plenty of people's houses, and I could tell you, there was a time where I was a cable guy, and the customer wanted to take away channels. That was an unusual request to take away channels at the time. And at the time, we had these little filters. This is basic cable. This is before digital cable. Yeah, I'm old. So what? So in order to take away channels at that time, you had to put a little filter on their line. And to get into the filters in that area, you had to get into what we call a pad box. It was a little box that services everybody in that neighborhood. So I didn't have the proper key for that box. So I went back to the customer. I said, hey, look, I can't, take away your channels today. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come back. I'm going to go see if I can. And I called around. Nobody had a key at that time. It was like Saturday afternoon, and people be trying to get off work at that point, so it's hard to track stuff down. So I said, hey, I'm going to come back in a couple of days. I'm off Sunday. I'm going to come back Monday, and I'm going to open it, take away your channels. You're going to be all set. You're not going to pay anything or anything like that. Your bill is still going to be, less or whatever you're trying to do. I'm just going to be back in a couple of days. And she just snapped. She started crying. She started yelling. And I'm thinking to myself, what happened? Right? Things just took a left. It just took a turn out of nowhere. You have to know how to handle these situations. So I just kind of politely, oh, no, ma'am. Everything's fine. I calmed her. I got her to the point where she wasn't crying anymore. And I said, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And I'll see you later. I'm leaving now. Right? You have to handle things a certain way. That officer shouldn't be dealing with people. He obviously had an issue going on. Seems to me that he's just looking at her a certain way. We could say skin color, whatever. I don't know. It seemed a little high strung, so maybe he was waiting on something so he could snap like that. I don't know. All I know is that he murdered that lady. He murdered her. That wasn't an accidental shooting whatsoever. Even when he put his hand on his weapon and he told her to drop it, she said, I'm sorry. She dropped it and dropped to the floor. That's it. The threat is neutralized at that point. I must mention, just to be fair, that the police department immediately fired him, and they did the investigation and said he had no justification in that shooting. So this is your man, Terrion Wilson. I know this was a little somber from what I used to do, but that's okay. I had to report on it because this is important, and we need to know out there. Policemen cannot come into your house unless they witness a crime or they have a warrant, from what I know. If you're law enforcement and I'm wrong about it, correct me and I will come back and correct it. But as far as I know, those are the things. So, and I also want to let people know that officers are a good thing. Do not hate all officers because of one bad officer or because of two bad officers. Now, because I know all great officers that do their job, that love people. Okay? So I want you to not do that. Do not judge every officer based on him because of his preterminations because of his bigotry or prejudice, okay? So this is your man, Terrion Wilson, a.k.a. Brotha T. I'll catch you on the next one, family, and hopefully it won't be as sad. Peace.